Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us. It's so exciting to be here with Olans, who is an amazing singer-songwriter.
Thank you.
And just let's get started. I wanted to talk to you kind of about this new album, which came out right after kind of another album of yours. Yeah. Can you tell me what got you started working on music so quickly?
I think it's always really hard to start working on something when someone tells you to. I guess I'm a bit of a child in that way, that I would do my homework if my parents didn't tell me to. So I released this album, and I had been really busy making Wishbone, and there was no one who expected that I was going to start writing again so soon. So I felt I had this freedom that I could just do whatever I wanted, because I was not gonna, I wasn't under any pressure. And suddenly I just had a whole pile of songs that I felt really good about and that I wanted to finish and produce. So it was all quite natural.
And also, from my understanding, perhaps you can talk more about this, it was very much a family affair as well. You really made sure that all of your family who has a really rich musical past has been involved. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think it felt natural for me to involve my family because they're all classical musicians, and I've always felt a little bit like, when I was a kid, it was kind of ridiculous. It was little bit like The Sound of Music, and all my cousins would be like, "Good night," and like it would be like, I would be the only one who wasn't playing, and it didn't know how to do any like read scores and stuff. And then when I got older, when I wanted to be a ballet dancer, and when I had an injury when I was 19, I had to figure out what I wanted to do, and I started playing music. So when I finally found my own language in music, which was completely different from the language my family had, it was so nice to invite them into my world and have them do like all my silly rhythms and stuff, that they would be like, "Oh, can you really do this? Like, can you really play with the saucer?" Like, yes. It doesn't have to be written down in a score.
Yeah, well, did you have on this album, did you have one of those moments where like you had to be like, "Dad, don't do that. Like, come on."
It's weird because I don't know what it is. I feel like I'm like, my parents are definitely a little bit like, I think I have a certain, I don't know what it is. Like, most parents are really like dominating with their kid, but like I was kind of like a dictator. I was like, "No, Dad, that's just not good enough. You have to do this again." Like, it was very, my dad just wanted me to be happy. Like, he just wanted to follow my vision for this project, and there really wasn't any problems at all. We just had so much fun.
Your mother is an opera singer, right? So do we hear her on the album?
She sings on the album. Yeah, she does choir on one song called "Favor Friends." And that was really fun to have her in the studio because, she's my idea of a real singer. Like, it was really hard for me to ever admit to myself that I was a musician, because I was surrounded by people who had like classically trained voices and skills. So I was like, I don't know. I just didn't. I found it hard to accept that you could be a real musician without following a certain tradition. So it was really fun to have my mom come into my universe and like bring what it is that she does so well and have it all like come together.
It's so interesting to hear that, especially since Wishbone, which was the album that came out before this, was kind of the exact opposite experience. You had some of the biggest indie producers in the world working on this, Sia, Dave Sitek, and what are the pros and cons of both of those approaches?
Well, I think producing with Dave was a super fun experience because he's kind of like a rebel at heart. He doesn't really want to listen to any like A&Rs or executive producers. He just wants to do whatever he feels like, and that was really important for me to have someone like that back me up at that time in my life, because I had just left a major label. I came from Sony, and I kind of like really wanted to find my own legs again. So working with him was like a little bit, it had like this rebel vibe. We like got this huge antenna from China and like hacked ourselves into a radio station and played my songs, and it was like really fun. But after that, I felt like I wanted to go back to my roots for Earthsick and make music the way I did when I started out in my apartment and in my pajamas making music.
So Earthsick was essentially written in your apartment in your pajamas. That's amazing. I remember I saw you probably in 2010 or 2011, and you were wearing this fabulous cape, like by maybe Lindsay Thornburg or Mary Meyer or some like amazing Brooklyn designer. And I immediately started respecting and following and admiring your style. You know, and obviously you're wearing like an incredible necklace today. Can you tell me a little bit about like the difference between what you pick to wear on stage and what you pick kind of in your daily life, or is there a difference?
I think to me, I think like one thing that is pretty descriptive of my style is that I don't really wear black that much. I think I'm like one of the only people I know that who barely has any black clothes. I just love colors, they make me happy, and I just have fun with it. I don't take it too seriously. I like when clothes make me think of things that aren't fashion related. Like this necklace makes me think of an instrument. And you know, I like things that, you know, you make me think of like Mary Poppins for some reason.
I get that all the time. I mean, in terms of performance, I like, and I don't mean to ever, you know, diminish anybody's incredible talent into like what they're wearing, but in terms of performance, I feel like it has such a narrative. Like one of my very first memories of you is just like this flowing cape. You look like a bright, colorful bird, and I feel like that really sets the tone for a lot of your music. This kind of like whimsical aesthetic that I really like. Is there, you know, do you when you're going on tour, which I'm assuming you are in the next few months, do you have kind of your go-to items that really like bring that magic to the stage?
Right now, I'm very much into this nostalgic feel in everything visual. Like, I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm turning old, but like I'm thinking of my Barbies and my Little Ponies and like everything that made me really happy as a child, and I'm just thinking that why should it not continue make me happy just because I'm a grown-up? So I think in my live show I want to incorporate a lot of those things that I loved as a child. I want to, like, I'm about to make this costume that is made out of old teddy bears, so I think that's going to be pretty fun.
That's going to be awesome. Also, your fans identify themselves as narwhals.
Yeah, that's right.
Which are underwater unicorns, basically, right?
Yeah, unicorns of the sea.
How did that happen?
I was supporting Katy Perry on a UK tour in, I think it was 2012. And it was Halloween, and I didn't know because we don't really have Halloween in Denmark. So I had to really quickly invent a costume, and I just like tied my hair up in what was supposed to be a narwhal, but everyone thought it was a unicorn. And then like I had to explain it so much. So afterwards, my fans, like the people who were in the audience, they were like, "Oh, you're narwhals." So now my fans call themselves narwhals, which I think is pretty cute.
That's very cute. That's much better than like directioners. Sorry, I don't want them to like attack me or anything. But that's great. Like I would much rather identify myself as a narwhal than. The other thing is too, we were kind of chatting backstage. every time I've seen you, I've had to do a double take because your hair is so expressive. It's like blue one day and blunt cut bangs the next, and then like long. Do you really have fun playing with that? And follow up, have you ever made a choice that you really regretted?
I think I'm lucky that my hair grows really, really quick. So even like it's just 5 months ago, I chopped it all off. Really short like there, and it's growing back pretty quick. So I don't really ever get to regret it because it comes back around so quick. So I think I just, to me, it's just hair. It will come back always. So I think I just want to have fun with it while I still have it.
Yeah. So the album is to me, I mean, you've always really experimented with electronics. But this to me feels like, I mean, it's called Earthsick, but then on the other hand, it does have a lot of like it harkens a lot back to machines and to synth sounds. And I was kind of wondering how you like experimented with that, and specifically how living in New York has maybe changed that or affected that in any way.
Well, that has affected me very much. The fact that there's never silence in New York. There's always like, particularly where I live in Brooklyn, there's so much construction work all around me. And, at some point you just gotta be like, this has to play a role because there's no way you can leave this out. So instead of just being really annoyed by all the noise all the time, I just started recording it. So when I was like walking from the subway home, I would like walk up to the guy who was drilling in the concrete and be like, can you do that again? And like recording the trains when they pulled in, and just like incorporating all my environment in my music. And then I'm always like really interested in the contrast between the way we live, which is so like far from nature, because we live in these like concrete cities without like, then we have like Times Square, which is like, no, I mean Central Park, and it's like so square and so like, man-made, but still it feels like nature to us. So I want to incorporate these natural elements as well, and I've been recording lots of birds and lots of choirs, organic instruments, string quartets, and me and Tore, who you will meet in a second, who plays keys. We've been doing the whole album just like walking around recording with our iPhones.
Wow, I feel like that's a very like New York approach to album making. Your single kind of starts off as being it starts off almost as a breakup anthem, and then it turns into this kind of like empowerment anthem. Do you feel like that's a theme that runs through this new album?
As a general theme in the album?
Yeah.
Well, I guess like in a way, yes, because like whatever awful things happen in your life, I feel like the way to deal with it is to like make sense of it. Like even if it doesn't make sense to anyone else, like I feel like we have this built-in need to create happy endings, even though they aren't the endings you wanted, then you make them become what you wanted. Because otherwise it's too unbearable. So I think there's a lot of frustration in my album, a lot of things that, a lot of drama, but in the end, I think I've decided that it all has shaped my life in a way that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think that's something that's like very prevalent in music nowadays, and something we really are reaching for, these kind of more honest narratives. Besides Head Up High, is there another song that you'd love for a single?
For single, well, they're all singles.
True, they
no,
really are.
I really don't know. Like, I'll be like, oh, I've made this, I think this is a hit, and they'll play it to some record people, and they're like, no, this is like a B-side for Japan. So I really have no idea.
Do you feel like, and I keep coming back to this because specifically you mentioned Favorite Friend earlier, which to me feels like such a New York song. Like it's like these
Favorite Friends?
Yeah, Favorite Friends, yeah. Of like this idea
that's
that
very New York scene.
Yes. Can you kind of like, I mean, it's basically about.
Yeah, it's about like, you know, people who can always like, well, it's actually a very specific story. I had a friend who was like, you know, someone I cared about and who I would just like find out that this person only needed me when they needed something personally and not like because they cared about our relationship or, you know, being friends in general. And in the end, I would just like see myself like lending out my apartment, like doing these things, like hooking her up with things and like, you know, like just doing all these things where in the end it was just like, oh, I'm just your favorite friend. Like, I'm not your real friend. And I can't like, you know, put my heart into something that isn't sincere. Otherwise, you should hire me as your manager.
I mean, it's interesting that like literally both the fast pace of the city plus like the elements have made their way into this album. But it wasn't all just written in New York, right? You went.
No, I did write. Well, I did actually write most of it in New York and a lot of it in the subway. That's my favorite place to write. But I also wrote a bit in Denmark and in Portugal. I love Portugal. I've been touring there a lot, and that place for some reason really inspires me.
Wow. Where in what are some?
Lisbon.
Ah, awesome.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful place.
I was also told to ask you about Pikachu.
Oh, Pikachu? Oh, I should have worn my Pikachu shoes. Well, I think Pikachu is like just the same as like my little figurines, E.T., My Little Pony, like all these things that are like symbols from my childhood, and they've just become like these icons in my life, and I just want to surround myself with Pokemon.
I kind of also want to surround myself with Pokemon, yeah. But you wore a Pikachu outfit. You are, in case you guys didn't know,
Oh,
Nana,
I dressed like Pikachu.
Nana is a judge on The Voice in Copenhagen, right?
Yeah, The Voice for kids though.
There's a Voice
it's Voice
for
Junior.
kids?
Yeah, there's a Voice. They're like teenagers, but they're really, really incredible. And it was like a perfect place for me to really get all of my childlike fascinations, like kind of like express that. So I would be like dress up as Pikachu one show and dress up as like the childlike empress
from the Never-Ending Story.
Yes, like all my icons.
That's awesome. How did the audience respond to that?
Oh, they probably thought I was nuts. I don't know.
Are you going to return to that, to doing that, or was it just kind of a 1 or 2 season thing?
It was really surprisingly fun to do that. Also because I think as a songwriter, and as a performer, you get very like absorbed in your own world and your own songwriting and your own performing. And it was really amazing to get like pulled out of my own head and like get really invested in these kids and their, you know, because they are at the start of their, maybe their careers, and that's the most important time in someone's life to get encouragement. And it felt really amazing to be able to give them that and help them be themselves.
Well, when you were that age, you were a dancer. You were doing something completely different. You mentioned that you were a ballerina. Is that what you were training? I mean, you mentioned ballet. Were you a ballerina? And that was what? Were you like training hard? What was kind of your education in terms of dance?
Well, I got admitted to the Royal Danish Ballet School when I was 9, and I danced like from I was 9. I danced like 32 hours a week. So basically, I didn't have a life. So I guess that's why I'm so fascinated with all these like childlike, nostalgic symbols, because it's in a way a lot of the things that I didn't ever have time to do when I was a child, because I was so ambitious and so just like caught up in training and always getting better, and nothing was ever good enough. And
part of your story since you started making music is that this happened because you stopped dancing. Yeah. Do you ever miss dancing?
Yeah, I definitely miss dancing. Like, nothing can replace dance. Like, dance is such a physical expression of how you feel, and it's, you know, something happens in your body, like adrenaline, like all these things. It's fucking amazing. But like, music is something else. Like, music is my most secret and personal thoughts, and it's like, you know, I like to describe it as, you know, my invisible friend who understands me. Where dance is not an invisible friend. Dance is just like a demon that possesses you and makes you do all these things, and you're climbing up the walls and like making cartwheels.
Well, luckily you're able to, in your career now, kind of bridge the two together a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that we're going to pass over the questions now to the audience. And after that, we're going to hear we're going to see the dance and the demons running up the wall with this.
Well, I can't promise climbing on the walls and cartwheels, but
we have time for 2 questions. Okay, I'll stand up. Yeah. Okay. Don't hit that. Okay. Hi. Thank you for coming in today. It's really fun to see you talk a little bit more about your music, like, and less than just performing. I think I saw you back when you opened for Kevin Devine. I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago in New York.
Yeah.
I remembered your performance. It just still sticks with me to this day for Wolf and I think you had like the balloons with the holographic
that's right.
imaging on it. I was kind of wondering how you decide which songs and which sets you use like physical objects for, and you know, what you do to the stage and how you decide to transform it.
I think I got a lot of inspiration from being a dancer and, you know, being in the theater from such a young age, and, you know, nothing was too theatrical for me. And then I started making music, and then I found out that it was way cooler to wear a leather jacket and stand still and don't look at people. And I was like, shit. So like I really, in the beginning, I had to like fight a lot to like, you know, get my visions across, because, you know, I would constantly meet this like, oh, it's too much, it's over the top, and it's like, but it's just like, it's the way I grew up, and I love doing these things, and I have so much fun, like, trying to imagine what my next setup is gonna be. And right now I'm in this whole, like, with Ursik, that album, like I'm you know, the whole teddy bear costume thing, and I want to basically make like a laboratory testing teddy bears. So that's gonna be my next live setup. I don't know if that was an answer, but
one more question.
Hi, thank you so much
Hi.
for being here.
Thank
I
you.
just want to know a couple of your like music influences.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that is
like specific artists, I guess.
Yeah, specific. Well, it comes in waves. You know, then I'll have like a period where I'll only listen to classical music, and then I'll only listen to country, and you know, it goes very much up and down. But I think some of my earliest influences was actually Louis Armstrong, which no one can hear in my music, but he was a big inspiration when I was a kid. And then a lot of classical music, of course, because that was all I was surrounded by. And then when I was a teenager, I got into electronic music, and Björk and Portishead and Massive Attack and Tricky, lots of trip hop. And then I've just been, you know, now I listen to everything from like Bulgarian choir music to hip hop to, yeah, basically Britney Spears, everything.
I think that's all the time we have for questions. However, and this is very important, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be off air for a little bit, but Oland is going to set up and then play a few songs for us, which is really exciting.
I'm excited to play for you. Thank you so much for coming.